to another fabulous video on federalism and the Missouri Constitution. Our learning target for this video is going to be compare the structure and functions of local, state, and federal governments. So before we get to that, we do want to do a little bit of review on the different systems of government that we've talked about previously. So government systems we've learned about are unitary, federal, and confederal systems. So just to kind of dive back in time a little bit, a unitary system is one in which the central government retains most governing power. And in this unitary system, if there are any state or regional governments, they have very, very, very limited authority, okay? A federal system is, of course, federalism. What? Federalism what? A division of power between the states and the federal government. And as we've been learning about with this unit, there are different types of federalism, but the one that we use is cooperative federalism. Think about the marble cake, okay? And then we've got a confederal system. And in a confederal system, the state governments retain most authority and the federal government is super, super weak, okay? So we have never had a unitary system in the United States. We have a federal system right now, and we had a confederal system under the Articles of Confederation, okay? So we've seen kind of a spectrum like this before. We said that if we were to draw a spectrum and plot all three of those systems of government on it, then over here on the super strong central government side, we would have a unitary system. Over here on the super weak central government side, we would have a confederal system. And right here hanging out in the middle would be a federal system, okay? So it kind of gives us that equal or at least a shared balance between both of those sides. But believe it or not, federalism is not perfect, okay? So let's talk now about some pros and cons. So first of all, federalism isn't really anything that everyone was 100% in favor of. During the Constitutional Convention. One of the overarching themes of the Constitutional Convention when we created our Constitution was compromise, okay? You had your anti-federalists who wanted more of a confederal system, wanted the states to have most of the power. You had your federalists who were like, no, we've got to have a super strong federal government because if we don't, we're all just going to crumble. So with lots of give and take, lots of compromise, we came up with this federal system, okay? So some pros of our federal system. Basically, we have a really big country, okay? And we've talked about this before. How effective as a country would we be if the only governing body that had any real authority was in Washington, D.C.? I mean, think about all of the different things that go on at the state level, at the county level, at the city level. I mean, there's just so much stuff that goes on, and it would be nearly impossible for the federal government to efficiently govern all of the United States basically on its own, okay? So that's a really good thing for us with our federal system. States can be seen as laboratories, okay? Now, not like white coats and science and all that kind of stuff, but think about some specific issues that are, kind of hot button topics in America right now, okay? Think about how the states are kind of able to see how all of that plays out. So, for example, there are some states that have legalized the recreational use of marijuana, okay? Obviously, the federal government has not done that yet, but people are kind of seeing how it plays out in those specific states, okay? And then issues like that, if it's good in those states, if things go well, then that may be something that the federal government might look at implementing state or nationwide. It's just one of those things that you can watch things play out in the states. Training grounds. So a lot of times we see like governors and other elected officials at the state level pursue federal national positions. So it's kind of a way for them to get their feet wet when it comes to learning how to govern. Okay, so sometimes that can be a good thing for our federal system. And we also have diversity. So we have a lot of different groups within our United States and a lot of different groups within each state. And because we have a federal system, instead of like a unitary system where everything's governed by one entity, these more diverse groups are able to have their voices heard, make decisions. So it's just really cool. Some cons, though. There are some downsides to good old federalism. James Madison warned about the emergence of factions. And if you can think all the way back to the Constitution unit many moons ago, the factions that James Madison was worried about was basically little groups of people who maybe didn't have the best ideas, didn't have the best intentions for everyone else. Maybe they're just focusing on what they want. And if that happens, if we just break up into a whole bunch of different factions, how are we ever going to be united as a country to get stuff done? So we see the emergence of factions. I mean, think about the stuff that's going on in the news right now. There's lots of different groups that are popping up and they're arguing, and there's a lot of contention and angst and so, that's a definite con, okay? Some inequalities among the states. If you guys ever want to go out of state, for example, to go to college, you may find that there are different requirements in those states. Maybe they cover different things in their curriculum, and that can kind of put some people at a disadvantage sometimes. So just because federalism is good for us, it's what we do, it doesn't mean it's the most perfect solution in the whole world. If you have any questions, let me know.